This is the first episode in my new series about Norwegian folklore and fairy tales. The picture you see now is from the Fiddler's Mountain, or Spellemannsfjellet, as it's called in Norwegian. As you know, I'm from a small town called Kragerø. And the reason I mention this today is because in Kragerø, both Edvard Munch, the painter behind Scream and Madonna, and Theodor, two famous painters, actually lived for a while, at least. Theodor is known for, among other things, painting Norwegian folklore and stuff like that. He has some painting about an eerie creature called Nøkken, and today I thought I'd be sharing this folklore about Nøkken with you. So, who is Nøkken, or what is Nøkken? Nøkken is an eerie male wit that resides in rivers and ponds and water and lakes inland. The figure is known from Nordic folklore and poetry since Old Norse times, so it's from the Viking era, actually. Especially in legend and fairy tales and folk songs from Norway and Sweden. Nøkken is a personification of the danger that comes with being close to water and can appear in different figures, but he usually appears to try to entice people to drown them. Nøkken is connected to several traditions, especially with origins in Germanic mythology, and occurs in a number of different local varieties throughout Northern Europe. The story of Nøkken are therefore often closely related to the world of the supernatural beings and mythological spirits living in water. In Norway and Sweden, freshwater spirits such as Fossegrimmen and Kvernknarren are figures that are more recent or newer than Nøkken. Nøkken is a quite old figure. Nøkken and river spirits can also borrow traits from classical water nymphs, for example in German or Central European legends from lindworms and draugs, marmaler, seamen and other saltwater spirits. In the old stories, Nøkken is portrayed as a frightening, vicious being related to both demons and the underground. He is located at the water's edge and tries to lure people and animals into the water, especially after sunset. It was particularly dangerous for unbaptized infants and pregnant women. However, he could also be a sad figure who lives in solitude and complains that he cannot win the eternal bliss and go to heaven. In old tales, Nøkken was particularly associated with drowning, whether he entices someone to him or, like Draugen in the sea, heralds upcoming drowning accidents, suicide, deaths, and storms with ugly screams and mournful moans. These cries are called varskrik, and can be reminiscent of screams from the bird black-throat diver or other birds living close to water. In several legends, Nøkken requires an annual drowning victim before he is satisfied. Some say that Nøkken catches those who drown and keep them to himself. Others say that he drowned, then comes to magnificent green holes on the seabed. The eerie tales of Nøkken served at least two purposes. One, they kept children and youngsters away from dangerous waters and alien animals and humans. At the same time, they become a way of explaining and dealing with tragic drowning accidents, the unknown and the forces of nature. Nøkken are often invisible, but may take form of a wooden log, a raft or something floating. He can also rise on land transformed to a horse or a human to lure people with him. Theodor he did actually paint Nøkken as a white horse. a couple of times. Not rarely does he show himself as a young man or a fiddler with long hair that seduces young women into death, but he can also perform as a dwarf with a red hat or an old grey-bearded man. Nøkken can also be seen as a face with hair, beard and large eyes that lurks by the water surface, such as, again, Theodor Kittelsen painted. Actually, he painted a picture on an island in Kragerø called Jomfruland. In German legend, it's often an older man with a long moustache, preferably a merman similar to the mermaids, but it can also be a boy with red or golden locks of hair. In many stories, Nøkken is known to transform into a great grey or white horse. The horse's body is not the true shape of Nøkken, but a trick to lure children upon his back and drag them into the water. Such a creature was in southern Sweden called bäckhästen, or stream horse. And there are stories in which bäckhästen is caught and used as migratory animals in agriculture, but it would escape as soon as it gets the opportunity. In Sweden there are also known stories in which Nøkken takes the form as a black bull. Kelpie is a name of a similar supernatural horse from Celtic folklore. It can also change form. It's usually black but can also appear white and is associated with the rivers and lakes of Scotland and Ireland. A similar figure is known on Orkney Island, Shetland, the Isle of Man, Faroe Island and Iceland. A similar Scottish and Irish water horse can change, among other things, to humans, but most often appears as a horse figure. Nøkken may use beautiful songs and music to spellbound his victim. In several tales he is the master on the fiddle. In other tales he is playing the harp. There is also tales in which he teaches his skills to human in exchange for a sacrifice or for pay, in for example a promise of salvation and bliss. In Sweden it's told that if you lay a sacrifice in a lake or a waterfall on Thursday evening, Nøkken comes and tunes the fiddle to the one who sacrificed, or he swaps it with his own so that the person who sacrificed becomes a master on the fiddle. The sacrifice you give can be a white coin, a black animal, as for example a black beetle or a cat, 3 drops of your blood from the ring finger, liquor or snuff, the tobacco kind. Fiddle play is nevertheless more often associated with stories about the less threatening Fossegrimmen rather than Nøkken. Those tales is usually about one who sacrifices to waterfalls and sit a whole night listening to the tunes from the waterfall to learn Fossegrimmen's string play. You can protect yourself against Nøkken by spitting or tossing steel in the water, for example a needle or a small iron cross. You could also bind him by throwing a nøkkerock so that it falls from high above and straight down into the water. If someone is taken by Nøkken, they can get free and survive by saying Nøkken's name, such as Nøkken, Nyk, and so on. An old verse that depicts this goes something like this. Nyk, Nyk, needle in water. Virgin Mary threw a needle in water. You sink, I float. Nøkken appears in a few wonder tales and quite a few local tales in Norway, but in the last 150 years it's hardly been an active folklore. One doesn't know about any memoirs about Nøkken from after 1850. And even if the adult didn't believe in Nøkken, it has been used as a pedagogical, fictional being to scare children from going too close to rivers or waters where the risk of falling in and drown. Some examples of legend is like this. One night, people hear Nøkken shout from the river, "The hour has come, but the man has not." Right after came a man running and wanted to jump into the water, but the people managed to hold him back. Then the man asked for water from the river to drink. He was given that, and then he dies. This legend comes in different varieties all over Europe. In Denmark they're usually connected to Åman, or the riverman, a Nøkken-like figure in Danish folklore. Usually he isn't featured as a visible creature, but it's still told in the same way, that a voice can be heard from the water when it's been a long time since anyone has drowned in the river. "The hour has come, but the man has not," you can hear from Åman. In that exact moment you can see a man running towards the water. Even if he could hold him back, he would drown himself in the water. Some kids are playing down by the river when they see a beautiful white horse laying on the riverbank. The oldest kids climb up on the horse's back, but the youngest doesn't reach up. He reaches out with his hand and shouts, "Nyk mig upp," which means "pull me up." When Nøkken is mentioned by name, he throws himself into the water with the children on his back. Only the youngest survives. The word nøkke or nykke can also mean jerking or pluck in Norwegian. Likewise, nøkken, nyk can mean a slight jerk or a bump or a sting. Yeah, that was basically folklore about Nøkken. We do actually learn quite a bit about this in school, because I guess folklore is a quite important part of Norwegian history, after all. Anyways, thank you for listening, and if you have any suggestions to my next video, I'd be glad to hear from you.